Hello, this is Tom Harper with Avidyne, and today we're going to cover learning the Avidyne IFD, specifically IFD440 Advanced. We previously covered the IFD440 Basics, and you can find that video on YouTube. You can find that easily, and that covers the first 6 lessons. I expect you've already done that by the time you've got to Advanced. I'm going to jump right in to the Advanced lessons, which is 6 through 9. So we'll jump right in here. Before we do, if you want, you can follow along with the IFD Trainer app. It's a free simulator that you can download from the iTunes store. It's exclusively for iPad. It does emulate all 6 IFDs, so in settings you can tell it, you can come up here under settings and tell it which IFD. In this case, we want to emulate the 440 so we can train as though we were using the 440. These lessons are going to follow along with the Michael F. Bauer series, Flying the Avidyne IFD. In this case, we've done an IFD 440 version specifically. The original book was using screenshots of the 540. These particular videos follow along with the Flying the Avidyne IFD 440 book. And these books are available on Amazon.com if you just do a basic search. So the first lesson up is Arrivals and Departures. And in this first scenario, we're sitting on the ground at St. Paul Downtown Airport, and we get a clearance that says, Cessna November 1234, you are cleared to St. Paul Downtown Airport to Chicago Midway Airport via the Zombro 7 departure. The Nodine transition, ODI, direct Davenport, Motif 6 arrival, climb and maintain 5,000, squawk 4321, expect runway 27 for departure. So that's the scenario we want to load. Here's the clearance written out in clearance language. I'm on page 72 of the 440 Bauer book. If you've got the 5 series book, it's on page 86. So if you want to follow along, and just look for those notes throughout the lessons if you want to reference the book now or later. So let's start out with that. First of all, here we can brief the departure. Here you can see the description for runway 27, and you can see the pictorial here. Notice we've also got an arrival that we need to load, which is the Motif 6, and here's the particulars for that. We'll brief it as well. Okay, here's our simulator, and we're going to be sitting on the ground at St. Paul downtown, so I'm going to put in an origin. On your IFD in your airplane, you would already know where you're at because your GPS is receiving a signal. But for the simulator, we'll just touch anywhere on the screen and we'll touch origin. And of course, I've already had it in there, but if you needed to, you could type in KSTP. So there we are sitting on the ground, St. Paul. All right, so notice we want to load the Zombro 7 departure, runway 27. So let's use this knob to scroll up to the departure window. We'll push enter or push in on the knob, and then we'll scroll down to the Zombro 7. So we're going to use the big knob here and move down to the bottom. There's the Zombro 7. Again, I can either touch it or hit enter or push this button to select it. With an ODI as our transition, so we'll now scroll down and hit enter again by pushing in the FMS button. And then notice it's prompting us for which runway are we departing, so we're going to scroll down to 27 and enter that. So now you can see our Zombro 7, all the waypoints are loaded in. So let's keep going. We'll touch here, or you can just move the cursor down with your knob, and we'll push the button in to get the FMS waypoint. So notice we've got KSTP to Zombro to ODI. Now we want to put in Davenport. So let's enter the waypoint, push in on the FMS button here, and we'll get a menu, and we want to enter a waypoint, so we'll hit enter again by pushing it on the button. It nominates the nearest airport, which we don't want. We want to put in CVA. So let's touch here to bring up the keyboard, and then type C, VA, right? So I've nominated the A, so I don't have to enter it. So just type enter. Now we've got Davenport. So we cannot enter an arrival until we've entered the destination airport first. So let's put in KMDW, which is Chicago Midway. So again, we'll push in on the button to get the menu. We're going to push it again to get what, because we're going to enter a waypoint. Instead of Davenport, we want to touch here and type KMD, and it nominates the W. We say enter. Now we're gold. So there's our destination airport. So now we want to enter in the Motif 6 arrival. So let's use the small knob here and rotate it up into the waypoint to where it says arrival. Push in on the FMS knob and you'll get a list of all the arrivals, including the Motif 6. Again, I can scroll down or just touch it and enter it, or double click it there. And notice CVA is our transition. So we'll scroll down to CVA and enter it. So now we've got the CVA Motif 6. We haven't been given a runway assignment yet. As we get closer, we'll get that. Or if you know what it is, you can put it in. But that will affect your arrival as well. So for now, we'll go with that. Let's scroll back up to the top of the screen with our knob. And you can get to the top, and there's our flight plan ready to go. And we can activate that flight plan by pushing the line select key. Okay, one thing we can do is hit the side tab here so we can see the map at the same time. And let's check our flight plan here. So we're going to move the line select key 2, LSK2, from expanded view to cursor view. Now it says cursor center. Now if I scroll through, notice I've got the departure airport highlighted. So if I use the big knob here and rotate as I scroll through each leg of the flight plan, you'll watch the map slide through from Jedit to Zombro, Zombro to ODI, ODI to Davenport, and then you get into the arrival to Bradford, Motif, Minot, and Jot, and then boom, on to Midway. So that looks like what we were seeing on the when we briefed the approach on our ForeFlight or on our approach plate. So we're good to go there. And we scroll that back. Okay, we're still sitting on the ground. And if we go to our CinViz page here, you can see us sitting on the runway. We're ready to go. Notice I'm in a north up view here. You can put this in track up view if you like by just pushing this button. Okay, and just so you know, at the beginning I paused this simulator, and I recommend you do that as well. That way the simulator doesn't immediately start flying as you're entering the flight plan. So I should have said that earlier, but I would recommend you pause the flight plan. So if you haven't already, please do that. So now we're at a point where we want to unpause and start flying. So we'll go with that. Before we do, let's switch over here to flight control. This is covered in other videos, but when it's in follow flight plan mode, you can think of that as more like a nav mode, where it's just chasing the magenta line. In autopilot mode, it follows our heading bug, and we can also enter an altitude and set our airspeed. So if I go to that, while I'm still paused, let's select it. You can see now I've got an altitude slider. And remember, we got to climb to 1700, so I'm going to just put that in by sliding the slider here. Our heading is 270. That's our runway heading we're going to fly. So we'll set that so that the simulator chases the heading bug to 270, and our speed is fine at whatever. So let's try that, and now we will take it off pause, and we'll start flying. And I'm going to slow it down to 1 here. So you can see that. I'm going to go over here to the CinViz page just so you can kind of see the airplane starting to take off. We get a Class B message. You can see the terrain on the CinViz. You can see the obstacles. And we're going to climb to 1,700 feet. And you can see our AGL altitude showing up here on the sim. Notice the obstacles are giving us alerts. So as you're climbing out, you get a call from ATC, Cessna 1234, turn left heading 185, intercept the Minneapolis-St. Paul 138-degree radial, continue the Zombro 7 departure. So you'll notice the 138-degree radial off MSP goes right to Jedit. That's our next leg. So they're just asking us, instead of flying to MSP first, let's just go intercept the leg. So in order to intercept that leg, we'll highlight the end point of that leg, which is Jedit, and we'll activate that leg. Use our knob here to scroll down to Jedit, and then we'll activate that leg. And we'll immediately begin intercepting the 138-degree radial. No sooner than that happens, we get a call, Cessna 1234, on your present heading, intercept the Nodine 305-degree radial and continue as filed. So in order to do that now, we want to scroll down to ODI. So let's use our knob here and scroll down to ODI. There it is. We're going to activate that leg. If we go to the map page real quick, we can zoom out here and see where that ODI is. There it is. It's way over there. That makes it easier to see. So now what we want to do, back on our FMS page, is we want to use our OBS knob to dial in the 305-degree radial. So what we're going to do is we're going to push for OBS. 305 radial is the 125-degree bearing. So you could change that if you had it hooked to a CDI, but in this case I'm going to use the CDI knob here, and I'm going to rotate it to 125. And you can see the OBS changing, the manual OBS there. Again, if you're hooked to a CDI, you can change it there, or from your HSI if that's what it's slaved to. So now we're going to dial that in, and we're going to intercept the 125-degree bearing to ODI, which would be the 305-degree radial. So off we go. Now we just skipped all those other waypoints, and we're going direct ODI on that radial. Okay, now you're flying along. You make the call, center Cessna 1234, request a temporary deviation 5 miles right of course to avoid some weather. Request approved. So how do we do that? We want to do an offset. Let's assume we have weather out there. So what we want to do is we want to put the cursor over the leg. We've already got that. If we scroll down, you can see we're on the leg between ODI and Davenport. We want to hit the LSK3 for offset route. And then we can turn the right knob to enter the offset. So let's do that. So let's push the LSK3 to offset route. Now we're going to rotate the knob to, in this case, 5 miles right. So you can see it changing over here as I turn this knob. Here we go. And then we hit enter or LSK3. Now it says offset route 5 miles right. You can see the magenta line. And of course, with the simulator on, it's going to immediately go over and start chasing that line. So it's going to head over there. Need to speed this thing up a little bit. So we'll get over there pretty quick. And if I go on in my map here, I'm just going to change the zoom range so you can see it a little better. Go back to FMS. Important to note, you can't have an offset on a published leg. So if it's a published procedure leg, so we can only do it on an en route leg. You can't do it if it's a part of a departure or part of an arrival. You can't set that offset because those are published procedures. So here we're deviating en route. So at some point, if you say, okay, we've cleared the weather, you can return to your normal route, then you would just clear the offset, hit the offset button, and delete the offset here. And then you would manually steer, or with your autopilot, steer back onto the old course. Another option to meet that request is to use the rubber banding function, where you just touch and drag any leg in the flight plan, and then wherever you release it, that's where it'll create a user waypoint. So let's just put our finger on there and touch. I'm just touching right here. Now I'm going to drag, and you can see I'm creating a new waypoint. If I get close to a waypoint that's on the map, it'll ask me if I want to snap to it. In this case, it's going to give me the rubber band waypoint right where my finger left off. I hit enter and activate, and you'll see that it inserts a rubber band waypoint into the flight plan. This isn't a good example because I'm too close to this next leg, but you get the idea. So now I'm going to fly to that rubber band waypoint first. If you decide you don't want that, you can highlight it and hit clear and delete the rubber band waypoint, and you'll go back on track. Okay, in this lesson, we're going to talk about saving and reusing flight plans. This is lesson 7 in the book. Okay, in this lesson, in the 440 book is page 97. In the 5XX book, it's page 113. So we've previously built a flight plan, and if you haven't built it already, this is the flight plan that I've loaded in. It's my current flight plan. So if I were to go over here to the flight plan tab, that would be the flight plan you'd see. And if I go to the route tab, it's in the current route status. So that's the flight plan to Oshkosh. So in this case, what we want to do is store that for later use. To do that, we can simply hit the copy button, and it'll give you the default name of your origin to destination. And you could call it whatever you want. If we wanted to rename this, we could tap right here and then type in to base Osh. And hit enter. So now that's the name of this flight plan. It's to Oshkosh. If we go back to our route list, you will see I have a flight plan stored called to Oshkosh, and it takes us from St. Paul to Oshkosh. Now we want to plan a return route from Oshkosh back to St. Paul, but we're going to get a slightly different routing. So we want to program the return home from Oshkosh back to St. Paul. So let's take this one and invert it. Now we've got Oshkosh to St. Paul, and let's change the name of this one. Touch here, and we'll call it return. Okay, so now we've got the return home from Oshkosh, but we're not going to go to Ripon. We're going to go to Sebmu here. So let's take Ripon and clear it. And Welch's we don't need. Let's go back in here now and put an insert cursor. And we'll type in Sebmu. So we'll touch the screen right there. We'll get a keyboard and type in C-E-B, and it nominates the rest, and we say yep, enter. Hit the enter key or the push the button. Then we put gee whiz in, so we hit the FMS button to bring up the menu. We want to enter a waypoint, and we touch on the screen here and type in gee whiz. So let's give me a G and a W, and it nominates the rest, which is handy. I'll have to spell it all out. And then let's put Maxima in. I may have inadvertently deleted that one earlier, so let's bring up the menu and waypoint and type in M-A-X and Maxima, enter. All right, so now we've got the return home, Oshkosh, Sebmu, gee whiz, Maxima, Eau Claire to STP. We'll go back to our route list, and now those are saved. Here's your to Oshkosh flight plan, and then here's our return home. If we decide we want to use one of these, okay, we jump in the airplane a few days later and we want to activate to Oshkosh, we simply activate the route to Oshkosh and then activate that flight plan, and off we go. If we decide we want to delete a flight plan, we can go back to the route tab. And let's say we're going to activate this route to head home. Let's activate that route. We're on the return trip home. We go back to the route tab. We don't need the to Oshkosh anymore, so we can touch it or highlight it and hit clear. Delete that flight plan by hitting enter. So that's how you store a flight plan, reuse a flight plan, invert a flight plan, and delete a flight plan. Okay, this next lesson is on holding patterns. This is lesson 8 in the IFD Advanced series. This lesson is on page 111 of the 440 Bauer book, or 127 of the 5 series. So in this lesson, we're going to learn how to enter and fly a random hold, and then we're also going to learn about how to load a published hold and edit it as well. So with that, let's bring up the simulator. Okay, there we go, and we're going to enter this clearance here, Cessna 1234. You are cleared from Quad City Moline to Chicago Midway via the J. Paul intersection, Victor 156 to Bradford via the Motif 6 arrival, climb and maintain 5,000, squawk 3456. So let's enter that flight plan to start. You can see it along the bottom here. I'll go ahead and enter this without trying to follow along with the mouse just to get it entered real quick. J. Paul. Enter. We're going to pull up the menu. We're going to go Victor 156. Enter to Bradford. And then we're going to, now for the arrival, we have to enter the destination airport first and then load the arrival. So we're going to put in Midway, KMDW. And I'm going through this fast intentionally because this lesson's on holds. We've already covered how to enter the flight plan. So, and now we're going to load the arrival. So I'm going to spin the knob here and go into the arrival window. And we're going to push in on that and select the Motif 6. And there it is. Enter. And of course our transition is Bradford. So let's put that in. Enter. So we've got our flight plan loaded. And let's go ahead and activate the flight plan. And we're off and flying. So let's assume we're now flying, and then we'll get into the lesson here. Okay, we're flying along, and ATC comes on and says Cessna 1234, hold south of the Waukdee intersection on the 180-degree radial, left-hand turns, expect further clearance at 1920 Zulu. So what we want to do is enter a hold at Waukdee. So how do we do that? Well, we can scroll down over the Waukdee intersection and push in on our FMS knob. And we want to hold at Waukdee. So we hit scroll to hold it up and hit enter. And now we've got a hold waypoint. And if I zoom in here, you can see the hold waypoint at Waukdee, but if you notice it said 180-degree radial left-hand turns. So let's go over here and change that by scrolling the inner knob. And we want the 180-degree radial, so it's a 360-degree course. So let's push in on the knob, and I can spin the knob and change it, or we can just touch in there and get a keyboard and type in 3, 6, 0, enter. If I go back and look at my flight plan, you can see the hold has changed, but notice it also wants left-hand turns. So let's put that in. So we come up here where it says right. We can either scroll up and change it with the knob, or I can just double click on it and it'll toggle from right to left and so forth. So let's go back and look at our side tab now. You can see our holding pattern is flipped. So if I zoom in here, there you can see our holding pattern, and the next leg is a parallel entry. So we'll fly that out. I'll go ahead and speed up the simulator here. 4x. And you see as we approach the waypoint, we'll get an alert telling us about the hold. There's our message. We're going to enter a parallel entry. The next leg, the barber pole, kind of makes it easy to tell. And now you can see we're going to make that turn and reverse course there. Okay, we're in the holding pattern and we get a call, Cessna 1234. After a walk, you are cleared on course. So now you can see we're making the turn. Notice in the lower left corner here, we can tell the FMS that at Wapti we want to exit the hold. So let's touch that. And now it'll let us know that we're exiting the hold at the fix. And you can see now we have a next leg again, where we're going to transition out of the hold onto our next leg. If something happened and they told us, you know what, go ahead and hold for one more lap, you could hit continue hold and you can see the next leg goes away and we stay in the hold. But we want to exit, so let's push the button. It tells us we're exiting at the next time we pass Wapti, which we'll do, and then we'll transition on. And I'll just speed up the simulator here. Here we transition off Wapti to the next leg to Bradford. And off we go. We talked about random holds. Now let's talk about published holds. We get a call from ATC, Cessna 1234. Hold as published at Bradford. 5 mile legs. Expect further clearance at 1930 Zulu. So you can see here from our little diagram, let me move that over a little bit. We've got a published hold here at Bradford at 247 degrees. That should be part of our procedure here. So now we're going to scroll down to Bradford and enter the published hold here. So we push in on the button, on the FMS button, hold at Bradford, enter again, push the button, and we want 1 mile legs, 1 minute legs. So push that, and there we go. There's our hold, just like it shows on the chart here. But notice it says we want 5 mile legs. So let's expand and move up here and double click on 1. Again, we can use the knob or we can use the keyboard and type in 5.0, enter. And these are miles, not minutes, so we touch that and it toggles from minutes to nautical miles. We hit enter, and now we go back and look at our map, and there's our hold. Notice it's telling us we're going to hold on course here, 67 degrees. 67 degrees is the 247 degree radial. So now we're holding at Bradford. Okay, ATC comes back on and says, Cessna 1234, you are cleared direct Bradford, cleared on course. So instead of the hold now, we just want to go direct Bradford. So we scroll up here, we select the Bradford VOR and hit direct to, enter, and activate that. Now we're going to ignore the hold and go direct Bradford. As you can see, we've still got the hold in the flight plan here, which we don't need, so we're going to clear that hold. So we'll just highlight it by touching it or moving our cursor and hit clear. Now the hold goes away and we're going to go on course to Bradford and complete the arrival procedure to motif. We entered a random hold, and then we exited out of that hold. We entered a published hold and modified it, and we exited that hold and then deleted the hold. So you can see it's very easy to do on the IFD440. Managing holds is way easier than it used to be, especially with the help of having the pictorial image there on your map. Okay, next up we're going to talk about instrument approaches. This is lesson number 9. If you're following along at home, we're going to cover 5 different types of instrument approaches using the IFD440. We'll do an LPV approach with no procedure turn and then also fly the mist. Then we'll do a LPV approach with a course reversal hold, followed by a VOR approach with a procedure turn to an alternate airport. Then we'll fly the ILS with vectors to final into that alternate. And then finally we have a DME Arc to a VOR DME approach. So first up is the GPS LPV approach into Appleton. It's the RNAV3. So we're going to depart Fond du Lac, fly the RNAV3 approach to Appleton with an OSH transition, and then we'll terminate that with a mist approach. We'll fly the mist. Okay, I've already got the flight plan loaded here, so you can see I've got it KFLD to OSH to KATW. Real quick, I'll just bring up the side tab here so you can see our flight plan here. If I go to the map and zoom, there's OSH, there's Appleton. And if I bring up the SynViz tab, the TOS tab, you can see we're sitting on with the simulator, we're sitting on the runway here. So we're ready to roll. Let's go back to the FMS page with the map. And we'll activate our flight plan. And of course our simulator will want to take off. I've got it paused right now. So I'm going to go in here, put in some altitude. And we'll fly runway heading until we get taken off here on the sim. Okay, so let's unpause. We'll take off. See, the simulator comes alive. If I go to the map page into the TOS tab, you can see us heading down the runway here. If I zoom in, you can see we're taking off there. Go back to the map. You can see us, we're climbing out. And now we'll head on course, so we'll just go follow the flight plan now, so the airplane will turn that way. And once we start climbing out, you get a call from ATC that tells you to expect the GPS approach to runway 3 using the OSH transition. So let's set up that procedure. So here I'm on the map. I'm going to scroll out a little bit just so we can see the full flight plan. And I'm going to go back to my FMS tab. I'll hit the procedure key. And here's a list of all the procedures. So let's scroll through the list. We want the RNAV3, so let's scroll down. There it is. You can see we're getting a preview over here. So we enter that or push in on the FMS knob. And OSH is the IAF. So let's scroll down to that and enter. All right, so now our RNAV3 is loaded. Got our approach loaded, and off we go. Okay, so after we cross the IAF OSH, you'll see that the GPS will move to a GPS with LPV armed, because we're starting our procedure. There you go. Now you've got your GPS to LPV. That confirms we're going to fly the LPV. One thing you can do is on the side tab here, I've set up one of my data blocks. Let's scroll the data block here. I've got a nav mode window I've added into my data blocks. That way I can validate what mode the GPS is flying in. It's pretty handy to have up there. I'd recommend you do that. And that's in another section, but that's configuring your data blocks. But for now, I'll just talk about it. Notice we're in terminal mode still, so that's going to affect our scaling on our CDI. For en route mode, on your CDI, deflection is 2 nautical miles. When you're in terminal mode, it's down to 1. And of course, when you get into approach mode, it drops to 0.3, so you get much tighter tolerances. Once we get to a pixie, which is our final approach fix, then this will switch to approach mode, LPV. So now as we approach a pixie, we will turn inbound, and this will switch from GPS to LPV and turn green. That tells you it went from armed to active. Here we go. Now LPV is active, and we're going to fly inbound. Notice our nav mode, it says LPV. That confirms what we're seeing here. And then we just fly the inbound all the way in. Remember, in this demo, we're going to fly the mist, so we'll fast forward through that. Go ahead and speed this up. So we're reaching the missed approach point of runway 3. When we hit that, then we will proceed to fly the mist. It'll provide us the guidance to do that. If you go to your full flight plan page, it gives you the guidance for the missed approach, which is to fly the course of 028, climb to 1138, fly direct Avidyne, which is what we're doing now, and then hold northeast of Avidyne. Right turns 4 nautical mile legs. So let's pull back up here. You can see it's easily depicted on our map as to the holding pattern, and the next leg shows us a teardrop entry. Look, it even alerts us this is going to be a teardrop entry into the hold. So now we fly that. And now we're holding at Avidyne and waiting further instructions. Notice when we started flying the mist, we left the LPV mode and went back to GPS mode. Okay, so we're sitting in the hold at Avidyne after missing the previous approach. Now we want to do is depart the hold and proceed to the initial approach fix for the, and basically we're going to shoot that same approach again, but we're coming in from the opposite direction. So we'll have a course reversal. So let's do that. Let's hit the proc button again and reload that approach. It's the RNAV 3, so we hit enter. And this time, our initial approach fix will be a pixie. Enter and replace the active with that. Now we're going to fly that approach. Notice it's armed for the LPV. We're going to leave the hold and fly inbound into a pixie, do the course reversal, and then reshoot that approach. If I zoom out, you can see a pixie. That's where we're headed for our initial approach fix. Here you can see it on the synthetic vision page, the TAWS page. You have TAWS. And we're going to enter the holding pattern, and it's going to give us a clue. It's a teardrop entry. We're actually flying a course reversal, so we won't stay in the holding pattern. The FMS is smart enough to know that this is a course reversal. So as we come through the course reversal turn, it'll tell us we're exiting the hold at the fix. There it is. So that's just reminding you that you're not holding here. You're going to exit the hold at the fix, which tells you it's just the course reversal, and then we'll fly inbound to reshoot the approach. Speed it up here. And now we're inbound. When we get to a pixie, you'll see the GPS will transition to LPV. LPV is armed. There it is. We exit the hold, and now we're on the LPV approach, just like we did before. So that's the second scenario. Okay, for this scenario, we're going to fly a VOR approach with a procedure turn, and then we'll also load an alternate port, in this case Appleton. So we're going to fly from Fond du Lac to Oshkosh, fly the VOR 27 approach with the Osh transition, and then after the mist, we'll enter a published hold, and then we'll proceed to Appleton for the next scenario. So we're going to load two destinations here. We're going to load Oshkosh, and we're going to load Appleton as our alternate airport. Okay, so we're sitting on the ground at Fond du Lac. We want to, and I've got the simulator paused, we're going to load Oshkosh, K-Osh, so we're going to enter the airport. We'll fly direct, K-Osh, enter. Then we'll enter Appleton as our alternate airport. So we can put more than one airport in as a destination. And we'll touch here and do K-A, and we'll get Appleton. We enter that. So now we've got two airports, and we can activate the flight plan. So our initial clearance is to fly from Fond du Lac to K-Osh, to the airport. So while that's catching up and getting us en route, let's go ahead and hit our proc button. And we're going to load the VOR 27. So we will use our knob and scroll down to the VOR 27 and push in on the FMS button to enter it. And our Osh transition, so we'll select Osh as our initial approach fix. So there, now we've got VOR 27 approach loaded. So notice we have a gap en route here. Well, we've told it initially we want to fly to K-Osh, but as part of the procedure, we need to fly to Osh first. So there's a couple ways we can do that. We can either go direct to Osh, or we can just activate the approach, as you see here on the LSK number 1. So let's do that. Let's select Activate Approach. And you'll see that Osh becomes the active waypoint now. You can see that our GPS is now armed for the VOR approach to VLOC. So it'll transition to the VOR radio. If I push in on this button and look at my VOR frequency for OSH for Osh VOR, it has been tuned. And now it'll default back to the comm radio. So now we're flying inbound to Osh VOR. You can see the procedure turn on your map here. Let me zoom that in. We'll go to the map. And I'll zoom it in a little bit. Then we can pan up and look at it. So you see we're going to fly outbound over the lake and do a course reversal and fly inbound. We're getting ready to turn anticipation, telling us next leg is 91 degrees outbound. Now we're going to fly outbound over the lake. We're going to fly the procedure turn here. Map. Go to the SunViz. You can see the very easy to make the procedure turn. Get lots of help here. We will capture the VOR, and now it'll tune the VLOC. Check your nav identifier. Make sure everything's gold there, then it will transition to the VLOC, will turn green. Since we don't have an actual VHF radio in the simulator, it's going to go back to GPS. But in the actual airplane, it would be now on VLOC, and you would be flying on your CDI, left-right deviation for the VOR. Now we're going to fly the mist, and we're going to head off to Great on the published mist. Okay, now we're sitting here in the hold at Great, and we receive a clearance to the Appleton Airport north of our present position. We'll get radar vectors to the ILS-3. This approach will be flown to a missed approach. So what we want to do is hit the procedure key again, and now it's going to give us the Appleton Airport as our next destination. In this case, we want the ILS-3, so we select that by hitting enter. And we want vectors to final, so we say vectors, enter. Let's go back here. There it is. We're on vectors to final, so there's a gap in route. We haven't told it how we're going to get to the GAMI intersection. So what we're going to do is we're going to place the cursor on the vector to finals block, so we can either touch it or scroll up with our knob. There we go. Activate vectors to final. So now let's hit that. Notice now we're flying the inbound decouple for our ILS to Appleton. If we zoom out on our map, you can see there's our inbound course. So we'll get vectored here. Now the simulator is just flying it automatically, but this assumes you're being vectored to intercept this inbound ILS to runway 3. So it's steering us around. You're getting left-right deviations on your CDI to fly. So our nav radio should tune to 109. So let's push in on the knob and check our frequency, 109.1. There it is, our ILS. So check the identifier. We're flying inbound. That went from VLOC armed to VLOC. This should be VLOC here, but since again the simulator can't tune a VHF radio because it doesn't have one, but in your airplane that's the way to look. In this case we'll get to runway 3. We'll fly the mist to the hold. So one of the key features of the IFD here is, if you'll notice, we're in the hold now, but if you want we can retry the approach. So to do that we just hit the retry approach. And vectors to final would be active. You would then follow ATC's headings to re-intercept the final approach course. The simulator will fly its own heading to intercept, of course. And that's how you do that. In this next center, we're going to fly a DME Arc to a VOR DME Approach. So we're going to be flying from Lyons, Kansas, KLYO, to Hutchinson, Kansas, KHUT. So we're cleared direct to Hutchinson Airport, intercept the 15 DME Arc, cleared for the VOR DME 22 approach. So you can see here's our plate. Flying to the Hutchinson Airport. We're going to be flying inbound and intercept 15 DME Arc, and then fly the VOR DME Approach to runway 22. So let's set that up. So here I've got the flight plan loaded from Lyons to Hutchinson. So let's load the approach. Let's go ahead and activate the flight plan, and so we can get flying. Okay, we're climbing out. So let's go ahead and load our approach. Just hit the procedure button. We want the VOR DME 22. We enter that, and we're going to select Yatru as our IAF because we're coming in from that direction. So now you can see on our map, we're climbing out. So what we want to do is, if you look at the map here, we can zoom in. We're flying inbound to the DME Arc. We want to just intercept the DME Arc. It didn't say to fly to Yatru, so we're just going to fly straight to the DME Arc, and when we get close, we will activate that leg. So let's watch that and keep an eye on it. So the leg from Yatru to Newbrae. So let's move our cursor over the Newbrae intersection, and then we'll just monitor this as we get close. Get my simulator sped up here a little bit. And when we get close, we'll just activate the leg, and then we'll intercept that DME Arc, and it'll fly it. It's that easy. Getting close, let's go ahead and activate it. Activate Newbrae, and you'll watch the arc will turn magenta, and now we will intercept. And our VLOC, our VOR DME 22 is armed. We'll fly the arc around the corner, intercept Newbrae, and then fly inbound to runway 22. Speed it up. Now we're going to turn inbound, and off we go. So we check our identifier on radio, so we tune in our nav frequency here for our VOR. Now again, this would, instead of going to GPS, it would go to VLOC because you're flying the VOR approach now. So we've flown the 5 different instrument approaches with LPVs, with a course reversal, with the VOR approach to an alternate. We've flown the ILS and the DME Arc. That completes lesson 9. Just to wrap up, there's some other resources you'd be interested in. As I mentioned at the beginning, this Flying with the Avidyne IFD440 book is a companion for this video. I encourage you to check that out. It's on Amazon.com. And with that, I'll just say if you have any additional questions, again, pilot support at Avidyne.com. We also have our tech support hotline, email, and you can reach me at marketing@avidyne.com. Thanks for watching. Fly safe, everybody.